Fantastic. So today our article is maybe a little bit different from normal because it's about a topic that we maybe don't read about so often or talk about together so often. And I think some of the vocabulary here might be a little bit more complicated than normal as well. But maybe that's a good thing. That'll give us lots of questions for today. The article today is a little bit about art history. Yeah, as I said, it's a topic we don't usually talk about, right? And it's kind of concentrating on telling a little bit of the history of art through colours. So looking at different colours that were used in different kind of famous paintings, and seeing, the extra meaning maybe that those paintings get because they've used this particular color. So I thought it was kind of interesting because of this. We've got kind of like an introduction and then like 7 little stories about different pieces of art. So hopefully it's interesting. Hopefully we'll have some interesting new words to talk about. And on Thursday we can discuss not just the art that they talk about specifically in the article, but maybe we can talk about it a bit more. But yeah, I'm glad that you're here today, Manu, because I know you like painting. I know this is something that interests you, so it was a good choice for today. Okay, so let's get started. Hang on, just let me make sure everybody is in the reading list here. Okay, great. First up, Manu, would you like to start today?
Yes, thank you, Natasha. From Picasso and Hokusai's Russian blue to Vermeer shade of red, a history of art in 7 colors. Kelly Groovier traces the pigments that make up hidden layers in masterpieces, some of them toxic, from Picasso and Hokusai's Russian blue to Vermeer's shade of red. Colors have minds of their own. They keep secrets and hide shady pasts. Every color we encounter in a great work of art, from the ultramarine that Johannes Vermeer wove into the turban of his girl with a pearl earring, to the volatile vermilion that inflames the fiery sky of Edward Munch's The Scream, brings with it an extraordinary backstory. These histories unlock a surprising loyalty in masterpieces we thought we knew by heart. This fascinating and forgotten language that paintings and sculptures use to speak to us is the subject of my new book, The Art of Color, the history of art in 39 pigments. Color, we've discovered, is never what it seems. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Okay, let's have a look at this first part. Are there any questions or any comments in this first part here? And does everybody know the 2 pieces of artwork that they're talking about here? I think these 2 are pretty famous. Yeah, maybe there'll be a few more that they talk about a bit later that maybe aren't quite so famous, but I think these 2 first ones here are even for people who don't know much about art, I think they would still recognize these 2 paintings. Okay, are there any questions about the vocabulary here? Okay, volatile. Can anyone explain what volatile means? Here they've used it to describe the color. We can use it to describe other things as well. Constantine?
Thank you so much, and let me try to guess it. Maybe it is some color that spread and make some spread into another color or something like that. And excuse me, I'm not sure. So thank you anyways.
Yeah, because we do have this idea, maybe volatile something when we're talking about
Volatile substances like the substances that are easily inflammable,
Sorry?
like petrol. Substances that are easily inflammable, like petrol, diesel. That's only volatile, I know.
Yeah, we can use it in that way as well. Because it's about something that can evaporate very easily when we're talking about a liquid or something like that. Obviously, though, we're talking about a color here. So the other way that we talk about volatile is something that changes very quickly and very unpredictably. So, if we say that a person is volatile, we mean that their emotions, their moods can change really quickly. And that maybe they could turn violent very quickly, something like this. So I think we're talking about the color. We're talking about this idea of changing. The idea that the color can kind of change very quickly, very, very unexpectedly, can maybe do things that we don't expect it to do. So, because this makes more sense when we're talking about a color, right? Sometimes some of the words will have more than one meaning. So we have to look at the context to choose like the meaning that works the best. Yeah, unpredictable. That would be another good word to work here with it as well. Exactly. Okay. Are there any other questions here? Any other questions? You think this was the simplest one? Maybe this was the easiest paragraph that we have. I know it gets a little bit more complicated. But that's the fun of it. Okay. You've already read it. You're prepared. Yes, you each get to read a part. I've got like what's it called? A random thing picker here that's got all your names in it. So I put everybody's names in it and then I hit the button and it tells me who the next reader is. So everybody will get to read. We don't have so many people today, so you should get to read maybe 2 or 3 times as well today. Just depends how many questions we have. Okay. But are there any other questions before we keep going? About the vocabulary? Yes, no? Let me know so I know it's okay for us to continue. Okay, let's keep going then. Let's see who's up next. Constantine, would you like to read?
Yes, thank you so much. Give me a second. Consider, for instance, Prussian blue, the captivating hue that unexpectedly connects Hokusai, the great wave of Kaganava, 1831, with Pablo Picasso, the Blue Room, 1901. At it not been for an accident in an alchemist's lab in Berlin in 1706. Such works and countless others besides by Edgar Degas and Claude Monet would never have pulsed with such enduring mystery or power. It all started then a German occultist by the name of Johann Conrad Dippel bungled a recipe for an illicit elixir that he believed would cure all human ailments. Born in Frankenstein's castle 3 decades earlier, Dippel, who some suspect inspired Mary Shelley, Dr. Frankenstein, was about to discard his botched brew of soggy wood, ash, and bovine blood. Then the dye maker with whom he shared his workshop suddenly stopped him. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's take a look at this part. Questions, comments? Okay, bungled. Has anyone heard this word before, bungled? Any idea what it might mean? I'm going to take that as a no, maybe. Okay, so something is bungled. It's not so much put together or mixed. No, it means that you've done something wrong, okay? That you haven't done something the right way, or you've kind of done something, kind of mishandled something, and, you know, it hasn't turned out the way it's supposed to. So you've kind of messed something up, or you've spoiled something, or you've made a mistake, basically, when you've been trying to do something. So we can use it for a lot of different things. You know, if you bungle a recipe, it means that you didn't follow the recipe properly, and so the food didn't turn out the way it should. If you bungle your speech, it means you make some kind of mistake through your speech and it's really unclear and maybe it doesn't really say what you're supposed to. So yeah, it's about like messing something up, basically, doing something wrong. Not doing something the way that it's supposed to be done. Does that make sense for everyone? Yeah. Sometimes this is maybe a good way to remember it as well. Sometimes in the news, you'll hear something like a bungle, like a bungled robbery. You know, the criminals tried to rob someone, but they did it wrong. And so they didn't actually get to steal whatever it was that they were trying to steal. So this, I feel like, is a good example to help you remember it a little bit more. Okay. What about bovine? Something is bovine. What is it? Here they're talking about bovine blood. Where did this blood come from? It's not mixed in a bowl, no. Yeah, by the bull or by cows, exactly. So bovine means cows, basically, cow blood. It's another way of, or that kind of family. It's another way of saying that in a more scientific kind of way. Actually, it's a little bit more than just cows as well. It could also include other, like other types of cattle, like buffaloes, bisons, these kinds as well. Okay. Any other questions in this part? Let me ask a question. What about this one here? Soggy. What does soggy mean?
It is, it's I'm illiterate as always, but is ancient Latin proverb is about what is allowed to Julius Caesar. It is not allowed to the bull. So the meaning is it, but I illiterate to perform it to you. So excuse me, please.
No. Okay, what about the word soggy?
It is from Latin.
Mm-hmm.
Soggy. Where is the soggy? Oh, soggy. Yes. Excuse me.
It talked about
Excuse me, please. Yes.
No problem. It talked about soggy wood ash. Yeah, we often talk about soggy when we're talking about food. So soggy noodles. Yeah, unpleasantly soft. I think that's a pretty good definition, actually, Manu. But yeah, wet is another good word for it as well. So if something is soggy, you've got something that's maybe absorbed a little bit too much water. And so it's kind of still solid, but it's a lot softer than it should be. So in this case, we've got this wood ash that's very wet. It's got a lot of water mixed in with it. It definitely isn't dry. It's very soft and mushy and wet. Okay. Excellent. Any other questions before we keep reading? Okay, botched. If something is botched, what is it? This is a little bit similar. I'll give you a clue. This is a little bit similar to bungled. Actually, we could probably even say that botched and bungled are kind of synonyms in a way. Yep, we've got that same thing, failed, unsuccessful, something that was done, but it was done so badly that you screwed it up. You've made a mess of it again. So it's that same idea, really. Same idea as bungled. Bungled and botched. We've tried to do something, we've done it in the wrong way, we've made a mess of it, and it didn't turn out the way that it's supposed to. A fiasco, yes, that's another good word for it. A lot of the times with botched, you'll hear this word used a lot when they talk about like plastic surgery, and you'll hear them use like the phrase a botched surgery. So it's when somebody does some kind of plastic surgery and it doesn't turn out the way that they had expected it to turn out. And it leaves them maybe looking a little bit strange, a little bit abnormal. This is a really common way that we use the word botched. Okay. Any other questions before we keep going? Yes, no. No. Okay, let's keep reading then. C, would you like to read?
Yeah, 1 second. I think this is a part where we'll be. Okay.
From Fresh Out of.
Fresh out of Scarlet Dye, the color maker grabbed Dipple's rejected solution chucked in a few fistfuls of crushed crimson beetles, threw the pot back on fire, and started stirring. Soon the two were staring with astonishment at what was bubbling back at them in the cauldron. Nothing remotely red at all, but a deep shimmering blue that could rival the represent, resplendence of ultra-expensive ultramarine, which for centuries has been prized as a precious pigment far dearer than gold. It wasn't long before artists were reaching for Persian blue, so christened after the region of a serendipitous concussion, and with both hands lacing their works with fresh level of mystery and intrigue. This is the thing about color, it never forgets. Just as the etymology of given words can augment uh, uh, our reading of the poem and novels in which that words appears, the origin of color shapes the meaning of the masterpiece in which it features. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, great. Let's have a look at this section. Questions, comments. Okay, let's start with serendipitous. If something is serendipitous, what is it? I think we might have spoken about serendipity before. Serendipitous is kind of the adjective form of it. I guess with the pronunciation, we have to think we've got 5 syllables here. Serendipitous. Serendipitous. Yeah, when you find something without intending to, by chance, exactly. And it's usually a positive thing. It doesn't have to be just about finding something either. It can just be about something happening, kind of like a lucky accident. So something good happening by chance or by accident. Ah, that's serenity, Constantine. That's a little bit different. um, serenity is a little bit different. It's not the same as serendipitous. That comes from the word serene, which looks very strange to me for some reason. I might have to double check that. Correct. Okay. Just my eyes. Okay, so here when they say a serendipitous concoction, it's this idea that they discovered this recipe, this mixture kind of by accident. But it's a pretty good accident. It's the kind of accident you like to have. Is that clear? Not so much about intuition. It's because the idea of serendipity is that you haven't necessarily done anything to plan it. It's just kind of by luck, some kind of good luck, or like a happy coincidence, something has happened. It's not about predicting anything or having an intuition about something. You're looking at it like after it's happened. You're not predicting anything from the future. Okay. Are there any other questions in this part? It is pretty amazing, isn't it, Manu? It makes you think about it differently, right? Because these two guys, they thought they were making red. They tried to make scarlet dye, and instead they made a really, really beautiful blue color. So, you know, they definitely didn't get what they were planning for, but they probably got something much better. Okay. Any other questions before we keep going? I'm surprised there's no other questions. Okay. We have one more. Lace with. What do you think they mean if you lace something with something else? It's not about getting along with, no. Remember, we're not talking about people here. We're talking about artists lacing their works with mystery. About quickly doing something either. It's not about speed. Not related to speed, so it's not about quickly or hastily. Any other ideas? Yeah, we can use it in this way, I guess, in a more like a slang way. If you lace a drink, it means that usually you put something not so good to a drink, like you put some kind of drug into a drink. So we can use lace in that way as well. Probably though, if we have that idea, if we think of that idea as being like mix in, like Constantine said, this is probably closer to the idea of lace in that they're using here. Or sorry, not lace in, lace with. If you lace something with something else, it means that you're including it all through something. So we use this particularly when we're talking about stories. So when you're saying something or you're writing something, if you lace a letter with something, it means you're including that thing all through the entire letter. If you could, for example, you could lace your speech with swear words. It means that when you're speaking, you're including a lot of swear words in your speech. So lace with is kind of, embellish would be another word that you could think of here as well. Yeah. It's this idea that we're including this in something else. So if we think about how they're using it in the article, they're really talking about like adding or including these kinds of different levels of mystery and intrigue into their artwork by using this color. Does that part make more sense now for everyone? Okay. Any other questions before we keep going? Make sure you let me know either way so I know if it's okay for us to continue. You think it's okay, Manu? Constantine, Z, what about you guys? Is it okay for you? Do you have any other questions? No? Okay, let's keep reading then. Manu, back to you. Would you like to read again?
Yes, thank you. Invented by Stone Age cave dwellers and savvy scientists, seedy charlatans and greedy industrialists, the colors that define the works of everyone from Caravaggio to Cornelia Parker, Giotto to Georgia O'Keeffe, vibrate with riveting tales. Although Van Gogh might have sculpted a smidgen of so-called Indian yellow into the shape of a moon in the corner of the Starry Night 1889, the sharp pigment still retains an aura of its anguished origin, distilled as it was from the urine of cows fed nothing more than mango leaves. A color's making is a color's meaning. What follows is a selection of great works whose deepest meanings are unlocked by exploring the origins and the adventures of the colors inside them. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's have a look at this part here. Questions, comments? Maybe I should have given a warning as well before we started reading that some of these colors were created in pretty disgusting ways, let's say. I don't think we probably produced these colors in the same way as they were originally produced in the past. I forgot to give that warning before we started reading. Okay, but let's have a look at the vocabulary here. Are there any questions in this section? Okay, seedy. What does it mean when we say a person is seedy? We can use it to describe like a person or their behavior. It's not someone who seeds, no. Yes, somebody with a doubtful character, a very, very doubtful character. So maybe someone who's doesn't have a very good reputation. Maybe they're a little bit corrupt. An unsavory type of person, really. Not the kind of person that you would necessarily want to have as a friend. Probably not a person you would trust so much. They said here as well, a seedy charlatan. Does everybody know what a charlatan is? Yep, someone who cheats, is maybe a fake, somebody who's kind of pretending to be someone they're not. All these kinds of ideas go with charlatan. It's usually someone pretending to be something that they're not. Okay, no seeds though. So if you think about this type of person, the idea of them being seedy kind of goes along with it, right? We've got somebody who's maybe not very honest, who's, claiming to do something that they don't actually do. They're a bit of a con artist. So these two words go together quite well. Yeah, quack we would use as a synonym of charlatan as well. Yep. Sometimes when we would use quack, we tend to use it more for medicine, I think, than other things. But it can be used for other areas as well. Not a quake, a quack. Like the same as a duck. No problem. Autocorrect sometimes does not help us very much, does it? But yeah, you could definitely use quack as the same idea as a charlatan. We got a lot of words actually. Probably like an imposter or a con man, or probably what would be another one we would use a lot? Yeah, fraud maybe as well. These are probably the most common words we use nowadays. What about the rest of this section? Are there any other questions? Okay, a smidgen. Does anyone know what a smidgen is? It can be like a smudge. It doesn't have to be. Probably a smudge works in this part, but we could have like a smidgen of sun, for example, or a smidgen of rain. Yeah, so it's like a little bit of something. A smidgen you can think of very, very similar to, like, we talk about a pinch of something. You know, when we're cooking maybe and we talk about like a pinch of salt. A smidgen is kind of that same idea as a pinch. You've got just a little bit of something. Great. Any other questions here before we keep going? Okay, let's keep reading. Constantine, back to you. Would you like to read again?
Excuse me, I have some problem with connection, so it's take a few more additional time. So, excuse me, could you please remember me where we stopped? It's one black, yes?
Yes, so we're going to start with the first picture here.
One black, born black in John Singer Sargent's Madame X, 1883-84. Then John Singer Sargent unveiled this portrait of Virginie Emily Avengo Gautreau, the wife of French banker, at the Paris Salon in 1884. It sparked a scandal. It is said that the artist's decision to let the right strap of her slinky black satin dress slip seductively down her shoulder, a detail he later removed, was more than contemporary eyes could handle. But there is something more than a risk wardrobe malfunction that unsettles the painting. Sargent has eerily inflected Gautreau's pale skin, which he whipped up from a curious combination of lead white, rose madder, vermilion, and viridian, with a pinch of ancient bone black, historically derived from the pulverized remains of incinerated skeletons. The secret ingredients complicate Gautreau's gorgeously gangrenous complexions. Bone black transform the portrait into a soul meditation on the fleetiness of flesh, blurring the line between desire and decomposition. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so let's have a look at this one. Got another color here that's maybe formed in not such a nice way, really. But what about the vocabulary here? Are there any questions?
It's about maybe, excuse me, please, it's about beauty requires some victims. It's about that. So to invent some new color, you have to kill someone or something like that.
I hope not. And I don't think they deliberately killed somebody directly to make this color. I'm hoping that these people were already dead before they decided to use their bones to try to make the color. Yeah, hopefully not all colors require that. Okay, here X is X. It's not actually a number. So here they're not saying it's not Madam 10, it's Madam X. A lot of the time when we use the word X after something like Madam or Sir, for example, it's kind of like as a mystery, like a mystery name. So we're not saying exactly who the person is. So the X is kind of standing in for the person's real name. So this X isn't actually a Roman numeral, okay? It's just the letter X. Yeah, they're remaining anonymous, exactly. Okay. Slinky. Okay, what does slinky mean? We've maybe got a little bit of help because we can see the dress they're talking about, but it might not be so obvious from the picture what slinky means. Can anyone explain it? Yeah, it is referring to the fit of it. Not necessarily tiny though. It doesn't have to be tiny, but it is about the fit. So if something, we use this a lot when we talk about clothes. So if we're talking about a slinky dress, we mean that the dress is kind of very fitting to the figure. Yeah, body hugging, that's probably a better word. So the idea is that, the line kind of flows. Think about like a flow along it. I'm trying to think of other things we would describe as slinky. To be honest, it's usually used for clothing. But you've got that idea of something kind of flowing along something. In this case, it's kind of, think about it as like flowing down the body, I think would be the best way to think about it. I'm trying to think of other examples for you all, but to be honest, I can only think of the other thing that we call a slinky, which is this toy. Which obviously doesn't make so much sense when we're talking about a dress, right? But I think even this toy does help a little bit because we've got this idea, the whole idea of this toy is it kind of like flows from one place to the other, right? It kind of has this movement that goes with it. So if you think about this flow, this movement, and then you apply that to clothes, maybe it gives you an idea of like a slinky dress, how the dress would maybe like flow down the body. Okay. What about the rest of this part? Are there any other questions here? Any other questions in this section? No. Okay. Gangrenous. What does gangrenous mean? What word does it come from, maybe? This, to be honest, I'm not sure if I want to find a picture of this. Yeah, because it comes from gangrene, exactly. And now you know why I maybe don't want to find a picture. So, really. So, when they talk about gangrenous, they're kind of turning gangrene into an adjective here. So there's this idea that we have this kind of like decomposing in some kind of way. Don't worry, I won't put a picture of this. But I think if we have a look at the painting, because we can use the painting as a reference here. If you have a look at the painting, can you see how her skin, she doesn't look very healthy, does she? If we have a look at the color of her skin, she's very, very pale, almost kind of like a gray color in some parts, right? So I think that's the kind of, when they talk about the gangrenous, what was it? The gangrenous complexion. We can kind of, not necessarily anemic. I think it's the idea that, you know, her skin isn't very healthy. Think about it more that way. That maybe her skin is kind of decomposing in some kind of way, even though she's obviously still alive. I don't know what you guys think, but when I look at this picture, I kind of think that she's got like the complexion of like a vampire. You know, this is the kind of skin color I would imagine a vampire would have. Yeah, exactly. It's like those deoxygenated colors. Exactly. Kind of that slightly bluish, white, unhealthy kind of color. Exactly, Manu. That's exactly what I was talking about. Maybe that's a better description, actually. Maybe they're the victim of the vampire instead of the vampire themselves. See, this is why I think that this might be an interesting article for us to discuss as well. Because I think there's a lot of different things in these pictures that we can kind of talk about and discuss. Yeah, some of these dresses were very constricting. Exactly. This is more about the painter's choice, though. We don't know if her skin color actually was that color in real life. She might have been a much healthier color in real life. And it's just the painter who chose to kind of give her that kind of complexion. Okay. Any other questions before we keep going? Yes, no, maybe so. No. Okay, let's keep going. See, would you like to read again?
A second, yeah. Second, red. Rose Madder in Vermeer's The Girls with Wine Glass, 1659 to 1660. There is an uncomfortable chemistry between the young woman at its center of Vermeer's painting, the girl with a wine glass, and her sleazy suitors, whom we see suspiciously sousing her with sips of alcohol while her chaperone nods off in the corner. To intensify the tension, Vermeer has ingeniously soaked the subject's dress in rose madder, a pigment derived from the fiery red roots of the herbaceous perennial plant Rubia tinctorum. Boiled the roots released an organic compound called alizarin that can be squeezed into radiant ruby liquor that intoxicated the eye. The lecherous suitors may be doling out the drinks, but the power of the painting pours from her.
Thank you. Okay, let's take a look at this part here. Questions, comments? Okay, so Rose Madder is kind of talking about the it's kind of like the name that they've given to this color, I guess. Where it actually comes from, the name Madder, I don't know, to be honest. I don't know if anybody knows. Apparently it's also called Madder Lake sometimes, but I don't know where the idea of Madder Lake comes from either. This isn't really a word that we use just in other ways. So okay, apparently there is a plant that's called the madder plant. So it looks like that's where the word has come from originally. In this painting, I think the color that they're talking about is kind of the color in her dress. Constantine?
Yes, thank you so much. And I would like to add the mother is a name of the plant. Then it have special root, and from its root they made that color. Thank you.
Okay, so madder might be like the common name of this plant that they mentioned here in this paragraph.
Yes, and it just maybe not biological, but maybe yes, biological name of the plant.
Mm-hmm.
Mother.
Okay, great. Thank you. Hang on. Looks like my voice isn't doing too well tonight. Okay. What about the rest of this section? Are there any other questions here? Okay, souse or sauce. Actually, I'll have to double check the pronunciation, but they talk about here about sousing her with, yes, sousing her with drinks, sousing her with alcohol. What do you think it might mean from the context? You might be able to guess. It's not about offering. It's a bit stronger than offering. Drenching, yes. So we always use this with some kind of liquid. And it's the idea that you're kind of drenching something or soaking something in liquid. So basically, he's drenching her in alcohol. He's giving her lots and lots and lots of alcohol. Yeah, he's kind of forcing the alcohol into her. Yes. You can kind of tell he doesn't have such great intentions. Exactly. He's trying to get her drunk. That's it. With very good intentions. That's also why in this part, if you have a look, some of the other words they use to describe him, they talk about her sleazy suitor. And then in another part, they also call her the lecherous suitor. So they're not using very pleasant words, very nice words to describe her potential suitor. Are there any other questions in this part? No? Constantine, you didn't want to add something?
I'd like to add, we have taken into account the artists and some people like that. They use almost, not the almost, but often they use some forbidden way to make something new. So using some, maybe, for example, when you use alcohol and you use something, a substance to change your consciousness. So it's about not only alcohol, but in also using drugs and something like that. And I'm sure the artist was trying it very often, because some even some colors proves it, because it was dangerous. It's even dangerous to smell it, even dangerous to working with it. So they use it, and maybe that's also explain why they so genial and why they do it in so maybe unexpected way. So colors, it is also maybe some magic in our life. Thank you, and excuse me, and I'm not provide some forbidden ideas. I just we have to take it into account. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. And we might have to stop reading here for today, but if you found it interesting so far, you might want to keep reading about some of the other colors and the other artworks that they're talking about here. And actually, there's many of these other colors that they're going to talk about when we talk about colors maybe formed in ways that aren't so great, aren't so healthy. We've got a couple of colors here that they talk about, which were definitely not so great for the artist's health. So things that used, lead, tin, arsenic, what else? I think there was another. They were the main things, I think. Lead and arsenic. But there were definitely some unhealthy ingredients in some of these colors that may have kind of negatively affected some of these artists as well. Which is why some of these colors aren't made in the traditional ways anymore, or the original ways, or aren't kind of produced anymore. Exactly, based on some of those poisonous metals. That's it. So if you found it interesting so far, you might want to keep reading a little bit more, find out some of the other stories behind some of these other colors. And on Thursday, let's talk about this a bit more. So I'm interested to hear maybe more about what you know about colors, about how they were made. Maybe, if you have particular colors that you really like. or maybe we can discuss the artworks that are in this article as well. We can kind of go through and have a look at the different pictures and kind of discuss what we can see and maybe why we think things are done the way. Let's see how it goes. Okay. But thank you all very much. I hope it was interesting, and hopefully I will see you all again soon. I'll put a link here in this thread to the post here on Discord as well. So if you want to leave any thoughts or comments or other ideas, you can always write a comment there as well. Okay. Thanks everyone. Talk to you soon. Bye.